Hello! Hello, hello, hello. How you doing today,
Hello.
Ant? How you doing today,
Today.
Ant? All good?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm very well. Bit of sunshine here, which is a rarity. How about you?
I'm all right. Welcome to the stream. We're going to look at some games, some of the projects from the last week or so. And yes, I am joined by Ant. Thank you very much for joining me. So should we just get right into it and have a look at some of the games then from last week, or how do you think how do you think everyone got on with last week's game? Do you want to fill us in real quick whilst I do a little demo?
Yeah. So last week's game it took me right back to my time in secondary school. There was an old Flash game called Bowman, and it was fantastic. You just kind of it's hard to explain, but as Tom's demonstrating, you kind of click and drag, and that controls the aim and the power of your shots. Except, unlike the old Flash game Bowman, we have a tower full of skeletons to fight against, which is significantly more interesting,
Uh-huh, indeed.
I would argue.
And I so some people weren't some people a lot of people changed the mechanics. They didn't quite necessarily like the principle of dragging back. Some people really liked it. It was interesting to throw a different mechanic at people and look at some. I mean, there's some
Mm,
cool maths behind the mechanic to make it work this way. But I mean, you've got the little path in there as well. But the little drawing back is a bit like it's a bit like pulling. If you've ever done actual real archery, you pull back to do your aiming. You don't pull forward. Not that you can pull forward, but you know what I mean. So that drag back there is a sort of way of trying to recreate that sort of mechanic. And in fact, the path one was the guided hack here, and I know a couple of people cranked that up to make it a little bit easier for themselves, so they could see exactly where they're aiming,
mm,
so you can see
I
nice
like
and
that.
clearly where your
And
arrows are
later
going.
on, we're actually going to see a one coder's own very unique take on the aiming mechanic.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So no, it was cool to do a different, different sort of mechanic. There's some cool arrow physics, and yeah. So the aiming thing is just to do with you pull in the opposite direction, and we check if we check the distance between where our mouse is and where it started, and that gives us the power and the direction to make our arrow fly.
Hmm.
So that is the base game, and let's have a little look. I believe we have Casper's up first.
Yes, this is Casper's. You have to forgive me. I'm not wearing my glasses. New ones are coming. So if you see me like, yes, that's why.
Being yeah, just "Hey, where are my glasses, dear? Where are my glasses?"
Tom had to deal with me ranting about my sore back earlier. It's like the old man is intensifying right now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, what's it going to be next? I dread to think. I dread to think. So yeah, how's your
What does
neck?
Scotch candies?
Is is your neck all right? Are you? I was going to say, yeah. Are you going to offer me some like Werther's originals? Other toffee brands
That's
are
what'll happen
available.
if I ever come down to Cambridge. I'll be like, oh, where it is?
Yeah. No, Ant, it's okay. I'll get you a Code Zone branded chain for your glasses, so you can't lose them.
A Code Zone branded chain.
I'll get you a
Oh,
glasses chain.
that sounds. Well, you've said it now. That's a promise. That's legally binding, Tom.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay, so let's look. So Casper's. So immediately you can see the differences in the things are.
Mm.
You got some You've got some different assets in the game, and then oh, I just saw the enemies fire multiple shots at once. That makes them a little bit harder.
Yeah, I only just remembered that myself.
See if I can loop one of these
Which
over. Oh, look at that! Look at that!
one, not necessarily a complaint, but an observation by some coders is that the enemies weren't super accurate. And
Yes.
then someone said, "Well, why don't we just let the enemies fire loads of arrows?"
Yeah, that works. That
That's great.
works. That works for sure. So we've got a thing to protect us. The enemies are firing loads, different sort of. This is a good little challenge actually with the little obstacle in the way because although it helps defend against you, which
Hmm.
is good, but there's also then the challenge of trying to loop your own projectiles over the top. Feels a bit like a trick shot or something, you know.
Yeah, it makes you engage a little bit more with the shooting mechanic, I think.
Mm. I like it. I like it a lot. And in fact, so just as we were saying about the enemies and the accuracy. So one of the things we've got going on is we point the arrow, we make the arrow point towards the player, but then
Mm.
there is this randomization of the direction. And you'll also notice over here there is a randomization of power on the arrow. So it points in the rough direction, and then there's deviation of 20 degrees
Yeah.
in each direction. And even then, the skeleton might not have put enough power on to even make it reach the player. So I like that. I like the fact that they've gone, well, I want actually a little bit more of a challenge, because it's nice to be, I try and balance things as easy as possible to begin with, because it's easier to make a game harder. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It
And then it's less frustrating for the younger
Exactly,
coders.
exactly, exactly. I have a lot more, if you want a game to be harder, chances are you're going to be capable of, easily change. You're instantly going to be able to change that code anyway to make it harder for yourself. So it's nice to give, it's almost like there's this natural leveling that exists, you know.
Mm.
But then obviously, yeah, repeating of the enemy's arrows being cloned in there. So nice. I like that. I really like this. I noticed as well there's some music and stuff in here. I've just turned it off to avoid having too much noise on the stream and I can't hear myself think. But yeah, no, I like that. And the wall, I really like that wall mechanic that it comes up and down. I really like it.
I'll also add that Casper did the wall hack, the multi shots from the enemies, the appearance hacks,
Uh,
and he solved the Rubik's cube
and
in that one club, and solved the Rubik's cube. I was watching him. He was doing his code, and then occasionally he'd finish like a little block of code, and he just
I still don't understand how Rubik's
madness.
cubes work. Rubik's
No.
cubes are magic to me.
Yes.
They are pure magic. I do not understand them. I feel like I should, because I've got the sort of brain that should be able to work it out. Rubik's cubes don't feel far off of coding and algorithms and stuff like that,
Mm.
and patterns and problem solvings. Still can't work it out. Just can't do it. So clearly, Casper is a better all-round genius than either of us. So congratulations to Casper. Because I mean, Rubik's cubes are cool. So well done. No, genuinely, I really like this, and also well done on the Rubik's cube. That's cool. Okie dokie. Moving quickly on, we've got Pranavs, I believe.
Yes, this is Pranavs. This is where we're going to see that the aforementioned aiming mechanics.
Yes.
Where I think Pranav is so used to diving into the game. Sometimes he just doesn't check the code card, and that's okay because he just enjoys engaging. But the fact that he had this idea before even seeing the code card and was like, I know how I'm going to do an aiming mechanic.
Nice. It's sort of, you've got to wait
love
for
it.
a second, so there's a balance to it. You don't instantly get that feedback.
Mm.
So there's more of a sort of challenge there. You've got the aiming mechanic, but you've got to take your time. But obviously that's a risk as it gives the enemies time to fire back at you. That's a really interesting way to do it. So what's different in the code? Should we have We'll have a little look. I like the spaceships as well, or like the helicopters flying by in the background. That's pretty cool as well.
I'm assuming the basic of what's happening is that we're no longer using the pen. We're kind of just creating a stream of little white projectiles, which is so fun. It's always like a hose, really.
So, is this Yes, this little white dot. The code is somewhat similar, but I wonder if it's a speed thing. Yeah, so I think this is a speed thing. Hang on a second. So if so we got this code here. Go back over to the base code for the path here. You can see this here, right? So this is printing a path, but if we click edit on it, run without screen refresh, right? That is ticked, which means in the initial, so the guided hack suggestion has run without screen refresh in it, so our path is created immediately. Pranav has, however, very cleverly manipulated that sort of thing. So it's using similar sort of things, and in fact, I think he's reused the player the player arrow map the play around arrow mechanic and worked it out himself, because that is fundamentally how it works. But he's just made it happen a little bit slower, which creates that lag. Instead of having the run without screen refresh, so it instantly happens in one single frame, he's made it so it happens over a longer period of time, which is what creates that smooth motion, because it's ticking over in each frame that we do. So very clever there, because he's reused some existing code, and in turn he's made something that's really cool. That is very, very clever. I like that indeed. Oh, and in fact, yeah, you're right. It's a little stream. It's like lots of little dots being fired out. It's like lots of different. Because if we do it like let's do this. Can you see they're all falling down if we put them above our head? They're actually like
feels very fluidy.
Yeah, exactly. They're actually sort of like, they actually are basically just little arrows. And when we're in a straight line here, they're not deleting or anything. They're just keeping on moving. So they are moving off the screen. So very, very clever there. Very, very clever indeed. And I like it. And it adds a nice little balance to the game. So the path isn't an overpowering mechanic. Very clever. Very clever. Okie dokie. So what have we got next? So let's have a little look. This is Luke's, I believe. It's from Pie Club?
Probably.
The Pong. I have said that word too many times, and now it has lost meaning to me. It no longer makes sense. Right, shall we test this out? So,
excellent, yes.
Oh, very cool. Very, very cool. Oh my goodness, it's already way too fast. And that computer is way better than me. So we've got classic game Pong, right? And as we can see, each time the ball hits the paddle, it gets so ridiculously fast. Oh, did we manage to slow it down there? Blimey, this is absolute carnage. So
I'm beginning to wonder what the enemy speed is set to. You can tell by the way it's fidgeting when the ball is moving slowly that it is just trying to go at the speed of sound.
So the enemy speed gets set to a random number between 50 and 100,000 at the start of the game.
I didn't know that.
For reference, 50 would be pretty big. 50 is, if we're just gonna, 50 is still fairly high.
Possible.
Still pretty high. It's still gonna be pretty capable of keeping up with the ball, even if it's 50 and not 100,000. I think 100,000 it would probably disappear off the screen at points as well, because it would just be too big. Yeah. So that's, I like that. There's actually one with some very clever balancing in a second as well that I'll show you. I like as well, just for reference, like the base game was just black and white basically, and colored pad, or like it was just black background and everything. So I like the addition of the background and the changing of all these assets and things. I like the ball. Oh, in fact, we've got some different ball designs here. Are they used in the code?
It's a subtle change. He wanted to create the illusion of a kind of a rotating ball. Without going into the kind of transform sprites extension, which I like to hope we'll get to cover in another stream soon, because I think that's great.
Well, transform sprites, we'll actually look at 2 uses of it in a second from one of my
brilliant,
from one of my Pie Clubs and one of Ashley's Pie Clubs as well. There's
fantastic.
some good uses of it there. Cool.
I think the rotation is just grand.
No, I like it. But that's a perfectly legitimate way of doing it, because actually rotating in with this pixel art sort of design can be a little bit of a faff. B, it doesn't always look great because of the way pixel art and things like that works. Take Pokemon, for example. Take one of the old Pokemons before it went all 3D. I'm gonna insert chance for Ant to be an old man and complain about how he doesn't like 3D Pokemon. Back in my day, it was black and white dots on a screen.
Okay, we know I'm older than you, Tom. Rub it in, why don't you?
Well, no. To be fair, I'm in the same boat. I preferred Pokemon when it wasn't 3D, but I'm not gonna It's a personal preference. I don't hate on new Pokemon like some people do. But take that for example, or old Zelda, whatever it might be. You just had you would have 4 different costumes that it swapped to. It didn't rotate the image. It didn't use some rotation thing. It was just if you were facing in different directions, it would change the costume. So this is a perfectly legitimate way to do it, and this is actually how a lot of pixel arty games would do it. And when we do stuff in tile maps in future, I'm sure this would probably also be another perfectly legitimate way to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So, in fact, on the note of the rotate, I believe we have Dominic's here. This one now as well. Yes, in fact, it is. Yes. So, Tank Combat. This was one of the ones from one of my Pi clubs. This is Tank Combat. This was one of the games. This was a game we did last week, and we're carrying on with it this week. So, it is a little tank game. What is this? This better be the right version. Have I accidentally opened up the wrong version of Dominic's? I reckon I've opened up. Maybe he has 2 versions. Hang on, I will put that off to the side, and I will come back to it in 2 moments. We will move on to Alia's, and I will come back and find Dominic's in just a second, because I think I found the wrong version, and I should have checked.
I'm seeing a music play melody there.
Yes, indeed. Just going back to the discussion of RPG stuff. I won't put on the music for the minute. But going back to the discussion of RPG stuff, we've got a nice little. Not last week, the week before, in one of the clubs, in the club that Ali was in, we had a nice little chat about how tile maps work in this Python engine, right? So, have we talked about it before on stream at all, Alan?
I think briefly when we discussed when my guys were doing the Amazing Maze.
So in essence, going back to what we were saying a second ago about the old Pokemon, the old Zelda, you have little worlds that are drawn, and they are grid worlds basically, right? So they're grids, and you stand on the different tiles, and when you step from tile to tile to tile, really simple way to check collisions, and it's low energy for it's low power for computers. It's stored easily. It's easy to render the graphics of because it's picture. There's not lots of super complicated angles to check for collisions or images or whatever like that.
Really helps those low budget, affordably developed games like Pokemon.
Okay, I'm talking about back when dial-up existed, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just being a bit of a rascal.
That is true. I know. Yeah, obviously, we think Pokemon nowadays is obviously a behemoth. But back when everything like that was when they were still sort of when Pokemon was pushing the limits of tech, right? Tile maps, right? So we can use tile maps and stuff like this. So we had a little chat in the club about tile maps, and then Alia came back last week from a week, having taken the discussion we had, and has built a load of like RPG tile map stuff and has started experimenting with it. So just off her, just based off of the discussion, tried her own little thing. So if we have a little look, so we have a little RPG with a little bit of an introduction. And you can type your name in and stuff. Actually, I've got to take the risk of whether I'm going to be good at the game or not, and whether I should put down Ant instead. So there you go. So we've got a little character here, and again, going back to what I was saying about like assets and stuff. If we wanted to, we can, turning to the side, we would change the asset. We wouldn't bother with like trying to rotate it, because if we spin this, it's going to look really weird, because all of a sudden the feet are going to be up here. So if you've got something like an angled top-down view where the camera's at that sort of angle, you know what I mean? Then you don't want to rotate and things like that. So actually having different assets, although it can be a little bit tedious, is probably the way to go in a lot of instances. So we've got to like avoid the lava and stuff. I am awful and ran into the lava there. I'm gonna put down Ant this time, just in case I do well. I do badly. Ant! That was oops.
So that kind of pit there.
Yeah, so we've got to avoid the lava and stuff.
Okay.
And then the level is finished. confetti effect.
Lovely confetti effect.
Mm-hmm. So this is like so Ali was saying she wants to build out a little bit more, and this is a great, I was just really super impressed the way she took our little discussion, all of 5-10 minutes, we were all chatting through how tile maps in the group work, in the club, and how it all works, and then she just goes off and makes this. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I like that she didn't only fiddle with designing her own tile map, but she also added event listeners clearly, and
Yes.
yeah, it's great. Which is
Indeed.
its own like whole kettle of fish to cover.
Exactly. So yeah, 2 seconds. Let me see if I can find the correct version of Dominic's project. See if I've got the right one this time. Think so? Do I? Yes, this looks like it's got everything in it now. That was it. Yeah, that was it. I have found it. He has 2 versions of it, which was why I was confused from before. So, Tank Combat. This was the one from one of my Pi Clubs last week. This is an example of how balancing a game can sometimes be a challenge, but also games can also game balance being funny is something that is possible. So, got a little tank here, and then should be able to drive around nice and simply and slowly, but instead it's way too fast. It is very unwieldy. And there are so many scorpions in this game. Oh yeah, and I forgot the thing we fire is actually just a person that then explodes. A little stick man that explodes.
I love that explosion.
Uh-huh.
Little hand-drawn explosion there.
Uh-huh. And one of the cool things about the explosion is that it actually plays into the collision. So given that it gets bigger, the scorpions then colliding with that animation still detect it as the projectile and thus get destroyed by it. So that means we can do some cool little explosions and stuff. The one downside of this is he has spawned in scorpions so frequently that the game does start to lag. So in the code he has done game on update interval, spawn enemies with an interval time of 1. Now that's not 1 second, that's 1 millisecond. If we hover over that, it tells us there, it tells us time. No, in fact it doesn't on this one, but it is, yes, in 1 millisecond. So we get in lots of scorpions. We also had a little bug where we were like trying to work out why it wasn't working, and then we discovered it's because he'd left laser in there, when in actual fact he'd renamed his laser, replaced his laser with this little character called No. So
I find this funny to say, but in a way, wouldn't it be like less demanding to run that on tick? Which is just hilarious. That would be a more efficient way of doing something.
Yes, because that runs every 30 milliseconds or so.
Oh, that's fantastic! I love that.
So yeah, so I just love the balance. I love this is a perfect example of just weird game balance and really getting to grasp with like the just where the game is going and where it's at, and what goes into making a game a normal game, and then discovering something that's weird and funny and different and is actually quite enjoyable to play. And also shout out for spending the time on the animation as well, because and sticking at it, because that was it was being a little bit funny. We had to make sure it lingered long enough so that the animation could play and things like that, so with the little bits to tweak there.
I'm a big fan, again, just of the inclusion of that extension, because you have all these extensions that are outside of vanilla MakeCode, and seeing kids practice using them, popping new libraries into their code, and learning to use it, that's just amazing. And it looks great. I know it's a bit weird with the pixel art, but I think the rotation is super cool.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we've got the transform sprites extension here, and this is what I mean about the fact that it does look a little bit weird. Like if we look here,
Yeah,
it doesn't. It's not
see,
perfect.
it's fighting to keep it in play, keep the pixels in the right spot.
It is. It is. It is. But if you want to make something, you can make something that is pretty good, and then you can take, as in this game, the direction has been taken so that we can then, I mean, drive way too fast, but get the direction and use some maths and things. So it does, it raises other interesting things like using a little bit of trigonometry to work out speed, or velocity. So it is a really useful extension. So it's something we maybe take for granted in Scratch, but then in this it's an extension, and it has to be worked with. We have to work with it a little bit harder to make it work.
Mm.
Okie dokie, we've got time for one more, I believe, and that is Jake's. So this is another one. Now, Ashley has sort of created an army of people taking the mick out of my games partly because I misspelt something one time. So now all my games are regarded as terrible. So Jake has named his Race Around But Good. And
Race
to be
around, but
fair,
good.
it is really, really good. So he has made. So he's taken. We looked at the track very briefly last week. It was just sort of capsule shaped like that. I feel like that's a much better map. It's a much better racetrack. I look at the time and effort. Look at these little mushrooms, these little like toadstools, and the different arts and whatnot. It's just, I mean, so yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's incredible, isn't it? It feels like Mario Kart. Like, and you crash and it's game over.
I love the colors. I love it. It feels like something I could have played on my knockoff SNES 20 years ago.
Exactly. It does. It looks like an old one of the original Mario Kart levels. Like it's got that. I love the tree toadstool mushroom design and everything like that. Again, this one's using the rotate. You can see how again it sort of slightly mangles it, but actually it means we can do some really cool driving things with it. But no, I just absolutely love this. I absolutely love this. Go around to this part of the track just so you can see a different part before. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And as you can see over time, there's more and more obstacles that appear, making it harder and harder. There's things like driving into the woods and you can pick up treasure and it gives you boosts and stuff. Like, Jake's level design is immaculate. He's absolutely brilliant. Phenomenally good. Really impressed.
Amazing. Yeah, big fan.
Awesome. Okay, I reckon that is probably all we've got time for today, isn't it? Now we should probably head on off. Well, actually, no. You know what? One last thing to mention. Next week. What is happening next week, Ant? This is a test of your memory. No.
Next week, we are coming up to the half term. Is it Halloween theme? You tell me Halloween theme.
I can't tell you the exact theme yet, but it is Halloween themed. It is definitely Halloween themed.
The Halloween themed game jam.
So we're back with the game jam.
So fun.
We are back with the game jam. It is good. Yeah, the theme. So for those who let me start that sentence again. For those who did not see the summer game jams we did, you have a week to make your game. You can do it in Hack Club or Pi Club. Inside of your club time, outside of your club time, whenever you want, you have a week to make a game from nothing, from scratch, so long as it's based around the theme of the jam. So over the summer we had It's Dangerous to Go Alone, Take This, The Floor is Lava,
Can't Stop Moving,
and Can't Stop Moving.
Mm-hmm.
Got another theme that I am not going to announce here, because obviously it's a surprise for Monday, and also Ant doesn't want to know quite yet.
Yeah, I was offered the chance to know, but first of all, I enjoy the surprise. Secondly, the coders ask me all the time, what is the theme going to be? And I will cave. If I know, I'm going to cave.
You can't be trusted.
This way, I get off guilt free. I have a guilt free way of saying sorry, guys and girls. You get nothing from me.
So yeah, we will announce that on Monday. We'll put up the game jam, and we'll be back next week with some additional streams going over people's projects and everything. Maybe coming up with some of our own ideas as well, and making some of our own games. I'm excited, not least because I'm really excited for this theme. I actually have Monday and Tuesday off next week, so I wasn't going to be on the Monday and Tuesday streams. Although, actually, I might be able to sneak on really briefly. Really, really briefly, if I can. Maybe I'll appear very briefly.
You know
But
what's
I'm
really
actually.
exciting me? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say,
I,
I'm off, but I may end up using some of that time to make a Game Jam game. I may enter my own Pie Club Halloween themed game. I've got some ideas.
Tom's big entry.
It's just
I was going to say.
It's a good theme. I'm excited.
I was going to say I'm really excited about the fact that in our previous game jams, I think the Pie clubs at the Code Zone were very young, very new clubs, and so there wasn't really. I think the people were getting familiar with the platform first before diving into their own games. But now we're at a stage where we have coders who are like ready. They are ready to get cracking on it, and I think it's so exciting.
For sure. Well, we've already looked at some games, Pie Club games today that people have made off of their own. Have gone off and made on their own and aren't hacks and whatnot. So you are right. You are right. So we are. I'm super excited for it. We'll announce it all on Monday, and you will like the theme. I guarantee you will like the theme, and
excellent.
It's going to be a good.
Excellent.
It's a good. Okie dokie. That is all we've got time for, and we will see you all next week for more streams, for extra streams. Thank you very much for joining me, Ant, and goodbye.
Thank you for having me.
Goodbye.
See you later.